Grace. Grace. Happy Friday. For those of you that are in the house and being saved. What's up, y'all? I'm going to try to catch y'all as I see you to acknowledge you. I'd like to spend some time with you tonight. But I don't know how many of y'all going to be on. It's Friday night, and I know what that means for a lot of you guys. But I'm going to meet you where you at. What's up, everybody? Hey, Sheree, I'm doing good. Riz, hey, honey, how are you? What's going on? Prophet Adeline, what's going on? Pastor Richie, incredible grace to you. Woman of valor. Hey, buddy, I don't know you. Dr. Shaniqua, hey, darling. Lakita, do I come in peace? Man. Now, don't get off of here because I'm about you suspect that I'm going to trigger you. Hey. Everything is going well. What's going on, everybody? I do indeed appreciate you for indulging me tonight and being on with me to share and to exchange. And it's going to be something good, hopefully, for you. So good to see all of you. Hey, oh, I know who that is, Mother Amber. Hey there, I am indeed your overseer. Will you please tell the world that? I'll be trying to explain that to Ajani. I am your overseer. Dr. Dwayne, hey, Dr. Perry. You're in Florida too, from what I understand, right? Happy birthday to Thad McCants. Ricky Holloway, submit and yield yourself. What's up, Coach Bree? That's my baby girl, man. You're going to make sure I feel like I'm the most wonderful thing in the world. Elder Dorian, what's going on? I miss you, man. I miss you. I'll be at church Sunday. Lucinda Moore, how are you? An amazing, amazing weapon and voice. Prophet Jasmine, I see you in here. Hey, text somebody, email somebody. Let them know that I'm on. Elder Jazz, I see you in here, honey. I've got something I want to talk to you about. I know the numbers are not what I want them to be, but I'll go ahead and I'll start. And we'll leave it up and see what becomes of it. So grace to all of you. I know that this is Friday night at 8. And no, it's a little later than that, depending upon where you are. And I know the saints love a good date. Praise the name of the Lord. First of all, let me say this. I got a lot of feedback. Some of it was odd, awkward, uncomfortable, but a lot of feedback nonetheless from our lives from yesterday. And it was very interesting to see how few people understood that relationships needed to be built, and it's a simple concept for me, but it is an interesting thing to know or to note that there are people who really don't understand the work relationships require. It's crazy that people think that, or behave at least, in such a way where they think that they can intrude, arrive, experience relationships without effort. But that stuff is hard work. No matter what it is, it takes talking and listening and hearing and understanding. It takes considering. It takes conflict. It takes a bunch of stuff. And so my live from yesterday has a lot of people in a lot of uproars. I've gotten a lot of questions. They're like, can you do a Q&A? And I feel like people are trying to get me into like a live counsel session where I manage and deal with and speak to a lot of people's very specific relationship issues. And maybe I'll do that. But I'm going to give you something that's going to serve kind of as an addendum to what I dealt with yesterday. But if you want to recap that, hey, Quan, go on my IG page and look at the last two lives I did. And here's the other thing, there was a lot of people when I ended the first live and went back into the second one, and I started with the clap. I said, "Oh, yo, don't think that your family is exempt from these discussions and conversations." And I meant that with every fiber of my being. Because what I said was, hey, Sister Desi, you're beautiful. What I said was, it is a dangerous thing to force or to cause universal definitions to fit very individualized and customized lives, stories, pains, etc. So sister, brother, niece, nephew, uncle, mama, daddy, those things are not universal terms, and it's not common sense to assume or assert that everybody knows what that means to you. And so I think that we need to have those courageous conversations and figure out what that means and how that is applicable to our lives, and whether we are willing enough or not to live through them and to them. Before I go into my deep rant tonight, because I do anticipate that a lot of y'all will be like, "Peace, I'm not going to do this with you tonight." But don't forget that there's Daylight Saving Sunday. Daylight Saving Sunday, Sunday morning. I hope you will indulge me and be my guest at the All Nations Worship Assembly of Chicago, 7359 on South Chappelle. And then I will be in Memphis, Tennessee, that evening with Pastor Brandon Clack and Pastor Christabel Clack at Reformation Church for their Sunday night fire service. So either way, and then you can always join us at 310 Riverside Drive in New York City at the amazing All Nations Worship Assembly of New York City. The All Nations Worship Assembly, of New York City, the Joseph Church. And you can come and be a part of that. All right. I noticed a theme in a lot of the questions, a lot of the feedback, a lot of the, Quan, that'd be great. You need to do a lot more of that. A lot of the concerns, a lot of the ruminations and considerations about what we shared yesterday about relationships. And there was a theme. And I'm going to give you the themes as I've assessed them. And you can take them and do whatever you want to do with them. I emphatically state as a preface, whenever I go into rants like these, that these are my observations. They are not research-based. They're not clinically proven. It's just wisdom. And sometimes it's experience. But I'm going to give it to you. There are three things, classes, categories of cancerous issues that will inevitably corrode any relationship attempt. Three primary things, three and a possible. And I'm going to share them with you. And you can figure out, while using the principles that I gave you in the other two sessions, where you land on them. I'm going to give you a couple of resolves. And all day, man, I was at the mall, tried to do a bit of some study to get ready for my weekend, getting myself together. And I kept getting calls and kept getting meetings and had dinner. And the themes were consistent. And I'll give you four. I'm in a good mood. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give you four. My first conclusion is this, and this is again in summation, but also in support of what I taught you last night. So get your notes. I have resolved that to appreciate, to engage in, to understand, to apply or employ anything that I taught you yesterday with regard to relationship phases and seasons, it requires a certain degree of maturity. Maturity is something we don't talk a lot about when we're talking about friendship mentorship, partnership, covering. Maturity is something we don't talk about. We don't talk about how or where your maturity level is when you enter into a relationship dynamic, and whether or not that particular relationship impacts your maturity level. But I'm not saying that you have to be as mature as you're going to be when you enter into a relationship. I'm saying that for certain depths of relationship, my finding is there are people, urban counselor Grace, there are people whose desires and needs exceed their willingness to mature. I'll repeat it. There are people whose, by virtue of trauma, pain, past experiences, they have a desire for relationships that will perhaps medicate or speak to or situate them away from the nagging feelings of that stuff, but they are unwilling to be as mature as their need is. So they're walking around with a gaping wound or a real deep life deficit, but they are unwilling to at least do what they need to do to mature, at least to the point in the place where they can handle doing what needs to be done, saying what needs to be said, hearing what needs to be heard, adjusting where they need to be adjusted, and all of that has to do with maturity. And it depends on the category of the relationship, right? And it depends on, yes, Fabian, I'm in Chicago. It depends on what you want to draw out of the relationship. But there is a degree of maturity. I find that a lot of, for example, platonic friendship breaks, there's a lot of different reasons why a friendship doesn't work out. But one of them may be consistent with a lot of them, and it's somebody was either not mature or not a maturity match, or they were unwilling to do what needed to be done to grow up to the extent where they could handle the rigors and the complications of that relationship. So in a lot of the questions that I got yesterday about what I taught, some of it was just plain old immaturity, just coddled emotionally, and one age genealogically or genetically, and another age emotionally. Maturity matters. I think in some ways, maturity matters in your retention. Maturity matters in your focus. Maturity matters in your priority, what you make important to you. I have a quote that I say very often: maturity will often determine what impresses you. And you can see that even in the body of Christ by what people are impressed with. It's a massive, massive statement of how mature a people is or not. So when I say maturity, what I mean is that you have undergone a series of life seasons that has done something to your perspective or your skills that enables you to handle hardship and or difference differently from that is underdeveloped and undergrown maturity. Another theme that I came up with yesterday is if maturity or immaturity is no, I'm not going to rush past that. I don't think that there is a certain thing as being perfect and without flaw and without error with regard to being quote unquote ready to date. Why am I here? But I think there is a certain level of maturity that should be expected when you take on the interest of romance, or else it's just sensual and hedonistic. Like everybody wants to date. Just date. Just let it all hang out. You work hard for the money, and just shake the girls and go. But there are some just certain maturity issues that I think should take precedent over wanting to distract yourself with the dating world and the dating scene and the dating life so as to occupy yourself from a social standpoint And then you get into throngs of relationships and realize how unready you are, because that's what's going to happen. When the sex is over and the drinks are done and the dates are done and the Netflix is over and the movie is over, and you actually engage in trying to learn somebody and involve yourself or invest yourself in somebody's world or pain or journey or desire and all that stuff, you're going to realize real quick how immature you are. And how maybe your immaturity is why you are on consistent dating rotation. Maybe you don't have the emotional dexterity to last throughout what a pure or healthy dating situation could take. It could be an issue of maturity. That's not blanket. That's not universal. But some people are just not mature enough to date. You're bored, not mature. There's certain things that I could look at about your natural life and tell you if you should be able to or desire to handle involving somebody else in your world. I think it's actually very self-centered, and I think it's actually selfish to start dating beyond a certain level and measure of maturity. If you've not learned to handle your own life, I don't know why you want to involve somebody else in your drama. So maturity. Certain things are just maturity centered. So yeah, I'll get that out of there. Another thing that I came up with yesterday. Now, all right, I know y'all are logging off because I don't want to talk about these relationship challenges, but I'm in here, so I'm gonna give it to you. I love. My life's purpose, simplified, is to reveal Jesus by way of the Holy Ghost. It's a simple statement, but it is the reason why I was born, and it's the reason why I'll die. I'll lay my life down to do that in more ways than one. And so the words, I love you, are so sacred to me. Doesn't have to be you. I'm just setting this up for you. The words, I love you, I don't see that like a greeting, a salutation, or a Don Buster, what's going on, man, or a sign off. It's not just something to me because of where I've been and what I've faced and what I've lived through and what I've studied and what's been revealed to me about love. It's not something that I casually like to toss around. In fact, it's always, it's always interesting. I'm getting to the place where it does not bother me when people who have never met me say, I love you. Now, I understand what a lot of them mean is I love your ministry, or I love your approach, or I love what you offer the body. I'm good with all of that. But it's hard for me to believe that everybody walking around and trotting around, particularly fans and all those people, I can't honestly say I love Beyonce because I don't know her. I haven't seen her cry. I don't know what bothers her. I don't hold a secret to her. I love her gifting. I love her talent, for sure. I think she's amazing. I could be being extreme. Again, this is me. Like Paul said, speaking is me, not by the Holy Ghost. I'm open to discussion on it, perhaps. If you disagree, depending upon the day, I might care. But to me, love is so important that it is a commitment to, and it is an investment in and an attachment to. So I don't just walk around haphazardly saying, I love you. And because I am Christian, or trying to be, I do believe that the Bible says that it's a perfect love that casteth out all fear. I believe perfect love is a person. It's the embodiment of Jesus Christ and the expression of his personality and reaction and response in every human situation. Jesus is love. God is love. 1 John chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. That's too much for me to be like, yo-yoing around for people who I am unwilling to sacrifice for, unwilling to be inconvenienced for, unwilling to adjust for, adapt for. But it also affords a different concept, which is if there is a such thing as a perfect love, there can't be an imperfect love or an attempt at love, desire for love, a reach for love. And it's still love nonetheless. It just means that I'm willing to get it perfect and perfected through Jesus. That's deep, whatever. Here is a point I'm bringing up. One of the consistent themes I noticed about my two discussions yesterday was fear. 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 There are so many people that are afraid to even take on the courageous task of building a relationship because they have fear. And fear, of course, is grown through and matured by past experiences, disappointments, desires, pains, and all of that stuff. But fear is a powerful inducement to keep people in isolation and away from the love journey, the love path, the love route, the love attempt. And a lot of the people that were asking me questions and asking for wisdom and all of that stuff, I couldn't help but realize you're just bound by fear. Now, here's how fear works. You know, some of your most confident looking people are bound by fear. There are attractive people bound by fear. There are talented people bound by fear. I know you're not going to believe this, but there are anointed people bound by fear. And it is the unspoken fears that set and resonate in the crevices of the soul, the recesses of the mind. And it creates like a conversational traffic that prohibits people from giving themselves fully and sacrificially to the love journey and where they are. So another constant thing that I came up with as I was listening to people about these relationship patterns is people really don't know what to do with their fears. I know y'all are intelligent and psychologists and all. But, you know, simply speaking, I know more people than not that just don't know what to do with their fears. So they kind of just leave them there in life and they grow old with those fears. They transfer from relationship to relationship, challenge to challenge, conflict to conflict, pain to pain, disappointment from disappointment, let down. Those fear just kind of like, you know, you just kind of move it place to place. And then they say, let's move. Let me go to Atlanta. Y'all know how black people are with Georgia. No shade. Or no, it's DC, you know, and I love DC, you know, it's probably gonna be my home after retirement. They think that their environment and their geographical location is going to give them a different advantage over something that is in fact an internal issue. And that internal issue is generations of fear. Here's something deep if you have the boldness to discover it. One of the things that breaks my heart about people who deal with fear is that some of them are not even your own. Some of those fears are inherited. You were trained in them, groomed in them. They were demonstrated before you. Some of your parents' overprotectiveness, God knows I suffer from this because I am the overprotective parent in my home. But some of that has nothing to do with your value for your children and everything to do with what you are afraid of. And at some point, that's not going to last enough. You shouldn't be overprotective because of what you're scared of. You should be overprotective because of what you love. You see how that works? The overprotectivism is right. It's good. You know, be the big bad wolf and the dad that comes to the rescue and the mama bear that'll stop everything. But let it be because of what you see in your child and not what you're afraid of. Because fear is not strong enough. Y'all not ready. to last the various seasons of life and the various challenges that come with people who are going to change and mature and evolve and all of that. So a lot of you don't do well in relationships because of fears. I'm going to give you a parenthetic to that. I use the issue of love, or the statement of love, or the declaration of love, or the covenant of the communicated and the articulated and the expression of love. Because you'll know when it's getting real when people can bravely tell you what they are afraid of. Sit in that for a minute. Oh, it's real. It's real. It's real, baby. When they don't give you responsibility for it, they don't blame it on you, they don't project it on you, they just say, look, this is what happened to me. This is what I'm constantly visited by, or some would say tormented by. See, sex don't prove that you love me. A long hug don't prove that you love me. We can cry together and that don't prove that you love me. But when we get into the realm of sharing and exposing fears, we got naked for real. A lot of you have gotten physically naked with people that you still real braced with. But to strip, God Almighty, and to strip in a real way means that you can be like, yo, I fear that this is what will become of my life. I fear that this is what will happen as a byproduct of my attempts to be that. I fear that if I try this again, then we're really in the realm of love, right? Because it takes a certain type of bravery, boldness, faith, and even to some degree hope to invest your fears in a relational circumstance or situation and believe that it won't be mishandled or weaponized against you. Fear. I'm going to give you another point to that before I go to my other ones. Y'all good? We okay? Okay. It is impossible. It is impossible. Impossible. Impossible to have had a painful life and not walk away with some level and or measure of fear. Fear is the byproduct of pain. If something hurt you to the extent that you remember it, you recall it, it has sculpted you, it has illegally groomed your character, you live your life in reaction to things, you live your life in response to things and not in pursuit of things. The dominant portion of how you are and who you are as a person is a byproduct of an occurrence or an event that happened beyond your control. You live your life like that and you have something that hurts. What you're going to walk away, the stain of pain is fear. I can look at your fears and almost forensically tell what the depth of your pain, historically speaking, has been if you walk away with fears. And some people build their entire lives around that stuff. They build their families around it. They build their romantic desires around it. This is why so many people want their romantic partners to become their heroes, is because they aren't willing to face their fears before they want to get into bed. Yeah, I'm not going to do that tonight. But fear. It's an interesting thing. Consider it. What am I afraid of? And who around me would I be able to unashamedly confess it to? Love is probably somewhere there growing. All right. Can y'all handle some more? Urban Council, let me know if I'm doing okay, man. My education and my degrees are in they're in the back, the category of curriculum development and instruction and policy and all that stuff. Y'all do the counseling stuff. They wouldn't let me go back for that. Let's talk about rejection. Let's deal with rejection for a minute. and the multifaceted ways that rejection shows up, and the way that rejection can complicate anybody's attempts, albeit imperfect, albeit miscalculated, to try to care for you and be there for you. Rejection is something that's crazy. And all rejection don't necessarily come across as low self-esteem. First of all, I am of the strong persuasion that you can come to the world rejected, with an innate feeling of not being wanted, not being necessary, being replaceable, disposable. And the thing about rejection is, I've always taught and believed, hang on in there, y'all, that you can experience rejection by event without becoming rejected by identity. And there's certain people that have had so many back to 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 back experiences with rejection that they become rejected. Jesus was despised and rejected. The Bible says he was sent to his own and they did not receive him. But he didn't live his life in a rejected personality, in a rejected mentality, in a rejected posture, in a rejected behavior. There was one particular moment where rejection came up out of him. And I only think that it happened so that you and I could have a pattern and a compass and a template and an exemplar for how to deal with it when we would experience it. Because it's impossible to be a human being, particularly one that's called to do anything great, and not have something be rejected. But you can be rejected and not become rejected. My experience with that was Jesus is like, hey, on the cross, in his most pivotal moment in human life, he's like, my God, why have you forsaken me? The Son of Man felt forsaken, rejected, pushed off, ignored, overlooked. That's pretty much the only time that we see him confessing that. And he's confessing that in a moment of death. Blood is leaving him. No, I can't stay there too long. But he gives us a pattern for how to deal with that. And he's crying out to the Father. Why have you forsaken me? Father, why? And so it is normal to feel it. It is not okay to become it. And a part of the questions and a part of the stuff that I got came from a lot of people that had embraced and adapted a rejected identity. You become rejected. And as everything that I say, the way life works is that there are things that happen to you that are not your fault, but they are in fact your responsibility. And you have the option to live your life as a rejected person. The danger with that is that you don't know how to receive love. Me no speaker inglés. When love is demonstrated, shown, you don't know how to honestly calculate investment. You disrespect people's attempts. If it's not perfect, if it's not consistent enough for you to feel safe, you dismiss it. And then when rejection reaches its peak, I know you're not going to like this. Go ahead, log off now. Go watch something encouraging. You become controlling. You become emotionally controlling, and you also become manipulative. That's right, because I know that when we hear rejection and we think that you've been rejected, we think that it's going to stay innocent and outcast and bashful all the time. No, something that rejection is going to become demanding, inconsiderate, controlling, disrespectful. Some may even manifest it manipulatively. One of the most common ways from a pastoral seat that I've experienced people that manifest rejection is through mind reading and manipulation. Mind reading and manipulation. They will silently take on a punitive or a testing posture toward you. They will test you without your knowledge to see how you're going to interact with them, how you're going to respond. And what they're going to do is, if you call them Monday and call them Tuesday and you forget to call them Wednesday, they're going to say that you're just like everybody else, rejected. And they're going to have you in a position where you're in your mind like, oh, I Gotta make sure I gotta go over there and hug Sister Betty because, ooh, she gonna feel like I don't love her and I wasn't there for her and I did. Rejection. But it's now put you in a situation of control. The mind reading thing is this. There are people who practice telepathy, Christian telepathy. I need it. I desire it. I want it. I'm afraid of it. I'm scared of it. I don't want to say it because it's going to make me look and or appear a certain way, but I'm going to hold you accountable to what I'm thinking without verbalizing it. I just said a lot. Let me re-say that. I need it. I want it. I desire it. I could use it. It's important to me. It could help me. It could aid me. But I will not put it to words because I don't want to be accountable to what I'm thinking and or feeling. But I still want you to know it. I want you to know that I need this. And so when our friends and our family and our lovers and our spouses and our romantic interests, when they don't become psychics, we take on victimization because they were unwilling to read our thoughts and get our vibrations and our signals and all of that new age stuff that y'all love so much. It's manipulation. And it's very difficult to last in marriage with somebody that's manipulative, to last in business with somebody that's manipulative, to last in friendship with somebody that's manipulative. That's the risk of rejection. The mind reading thing is it's like being a baby who has not learned to attach or associate their need or desire. You know, when you were a baby, maybe this is me with my baby fever again, but just deal with it. When you're a baby, every emotion you have except joy comes across through tears. When you have an infant, I'm hungry. Wah! I'm sleepy. Wah! I don't feel good. Wah! I need my diaper changed. Wah! All different occurrences expressed the exact same way. But then, because you're a baby and we know how to interact with you, we kind of, we kind of start to have to be forced to learn the language of the whine and what the different whines and cries mean. You should not be 25, 30, 35, 40. To myself, wah, wah. The thing about growing up is that you learn how to use your words. You learn how to associate and attach your needs, your desires, your wants, your discomforts, your fears, and all of that stuff to language so that we can make it a discussion so that you can't be in the situation of control. Mind reading. All right? Rejection. Powerful book on rejection is called Excuse Me, Your Rejection is Showing. I used to recommend it to all of my leaders. It's probably a very good read for you. And I'm not making you feel guilty for being rejected. Some of you can't control it. It's just a matter of what life did to you and does to you. But you got to learn how to manage this stuff so you don't control those of us that's trying to love and care for real. But here's a deeper one. Major part of those questions and comments and concerns about those relationship measurements and classifications is a little more complicated than rejection. It's abandonment. Now, before you dismiss those as the same events, they're not. There are people that battle rejection. Some people self-rejection. They've experienced it. But there are other people who battle abandonment. Abandonment is a little different from rejection. And they will all show up. You don't have to believe me. Try it. And friendship attempts, romantic attempts. Oh my God, let me get into the mentor, pastor, spiritual father, papa thing. It will show up. If you were grabbed, embraced, committed to, promised, covenanted to, and then without explanation, without conversation, without notice, warning, or symptom, somebody just said, "Hey, I love you," not no more, and just let you go. That is a different trauma from rejection. They both communicate different values of worth or not, different intents from people toward you and or not. Abandonment means that somebody didn't take responsibility for what they were supposed to be or promised to be. Rejection could be circumstantial or environmental. Abandonment sometimes is intentional, or sometimes it could be accidental, but it tends to have a bit more intent and knowledge about it. You abandoned me, which means that you turned your back on me, turned your back on our commitment, our definition, what we were supposed to be, what you committed to be, and I created room and or space for you in my existence for whatever you would provide and be, and now I'm living in a cavity and a deficit because this space was customized for you. So this is why sometimes rejection and abandonment, they go hand in hand. They're not exactly the same things. They feel differently in a life. So, for example, a divorce could be like rejection, but a father who walks away from his children and wife without explanation could be abandonment. You understand what I'm saying? They're different things. It's almost akin to, okay, if I have students in here, you contrast this. Rejection is to abandonment what jealousy is to envy. I'm going to repeat it. Rejection is to abandonment what jealousy is to envy. They have similar features, similar fruit, similar impact on the heart and the soul and the life, but they have two different things. So, for example, when you deal with jealousy is, why not me? Why not me? Why not me? But when it metastasizes into envy, it's, I will do everything in my power to make sure it's not you. Jealousy can come from a place of insecurity. Envy becomes murderous. Envy is, I will do anything in my power, say anything in my power, gossip, rumor, lie, connive, scheme, plot, ploy to make sure that you don't have what I wish I did. So they're kind of on the same squad and team, but they achieve two different things. All right, so we dealt with maturity, we dealt with fear, we dealt with rejection, and we dealt with abandonment. I'm going to encourage you to do your own studies and investigations of this stuff, because I guarantee you that if you're struggling in your relationships to any degree, some of this stuff may be impacted or interlaced in there. And not only is it going to be difficult for you to love, it's going to be difficult for you to receive love if you just let these things just linger in your life and linger in your soul and linger in there. You want to know, you're like, oh, I'm single, I ain't got no kids. People can sense that emotional baggage, and you could be the sexiest thing on the planet, and by the time y'all have left the restaurant, they can sense that rejection. They can sense that abandonment. All right, guys, it's like trying to love you in the red, trying to support you in the red, trying to be there for you in the red. So we've got to do overtime at the beginning parts of the relationship just to let you know that our motive, our heart, our intent is pure toward you, and is consistent toward you. So the worst news is this. You can go to as many therapists as you want, and I encourage it. You can take the pills that you want, and I encourage it. But there's some real individual one-on-one work you have to do if you're going to conquer, tackle, try to grasp these four giants. You're responsible for your own maturity. You've got to face your fears. You've got to deal with and investigate your rejection issues. Then you got to do something with your abandonment. I'm going to give you some final wisdom before I let you go. I'm going to caution you to not make other people take the blame for your rejection or abandonment, even if they participated in it. I don't care who the sponsor was. I don't care who the reason was. I don't care what the circumstance was. They more than likely have moved on with their lives. Your mama, your daddy, your grandmama, the rapist, the molester. And I'm not being insensitive saying that you can't be impacted. But what happens if they never say sorry? And what happens if they never own their participation or their responsibility in your stuff? Don't look. The blame is going to block you. It's going to blind you. You need to take responsibility for your own rejection, your own abandonment, and make sure that it doesn't get in the way of a quality love. Does that make sense? I'm saying it's like y'all can say it back, but yeah. Now, if you've been rejected and have become rejected, okay. And here's another issue. I have known and counseled people who have experienced this so much so that it's literally it's sculpted them to be a certain way, to hear things in a certain way, to see things in a certain way, to be pessimistic and cynical and deficient and defiant and all of that stuff. And some of these people have rejection issues or abandonment issues with people who are dead. A couple months ago, the Lord told me in a meeting, I was preaching and ministering and stuff, and he told me, tell the people that they needed to forgive dead people. And I had to immediately go through my deliverance, my spiritual warfare. I was ready to, but then I realized it's very much so possible to be for you to be a person that's alive, that's still bound by the actions of the dead. They don't have to be alive for you to be bound by what they did or said. And some of you have grandparents, and some of you have uncles and aunties or people that are no longer even living, and you are ensnared by their actions and ensnared by their words or the lack thereof, the silence of those people. What are you going to do? Emotionally, mentally, relationally, if they never apologize or recognize or agree with it. I'm going to leave you on the Selah with that. But those were the things I came up with. That was a consistent theme of every question I got with regard to those relationship formats and structures, measurements that I gave you yesterday. When dealing with relationship phases, I left both of them up so you can still go back and take notes should you dare. But consider your maturity, your fears, your rejection, your abandonment, if they exist. Join me, if you will, Sunday. Don't forget it's daylight savings. I'll be back on here tomorrow with something else to make you think about. And it's going to be an amazing time. I invite you to be my very personal guest at the All Nations Worship Assembly of Chicago. And by the way, we're doing Upside Down Church, which means I'm preaching first. So if you come there fashionably late trying to strut down the aisle, you're going to miss the word and probably your breakthrough. So be there on time, and it's going to be a wonderful time of the Lord. All right, grace to all of you, and have a good night. Try your best to stay out of sin. And should you fall or slip, the Lord's mercies are everlasting. All right, I love you all. Peace.